and YouTube. Good morning, everybody. So glad to see you on this beautiful spring day. Early spring, but spring, the promise of spring. I don't know if you can see the background today. We have our usual posters draped in purple, and that's about the passion of the cross and the little bit of Christian that we proclaim here, and a little bit of everything else as well, and a big question mark over the top. But we do light a candle today to believe in that promise of not only spring, but that promise of a better day for justice for all. This morning, my name is Dean, by the way, and they call me the bottle washer and fake minister and a lot of other opprobrium as well. But I'm glad to be with you and convening you for this, what do they call it, Palm Sunday as well, and a lot of other things. We have a couple of things to start out with. We lost Mel King this week. And we happen to have in our congregation what in Mexico they call one of los grandes. And that means the great ones, and that's what they call the elders. And Tilly Teixeira knew Mel for 60 years from the first school committee campaign that he ran in 1962. And we have Tilly with us to light this candle and pay a fond, incredible solidarity memory to the beloved Mel King. Go ahead, Tilly.
Good morning, and it is spring and the flowers are out, and this is Mel, 1961 it was, and when he ran for school, first run for school committee as a group, and no, I didn't know him, and my husband didn't know him, Ed, and we had an argument. Why run bother with school? Our kids aren't in school. And I said, they're going to be. And 3 days later, he was Mel's campaign manager in Ward 12 in Roxbury. And the beginning of a very long, close friendship. And what is Mel? Mel is love. Mel is unity. And it is unity in every way possible. Biblically, what is it, the saying, what's required of thee is to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with thy God. I could never do that third piece, but Mel was the embodiment of that third, of walking humbly and of bringing unity and peace. And I can't emphasize that question of unity. And yes, when we moved to the South End around 1974, Sunday brunches at Mel's were very often, most often, a lot more enthralling than community church. That's heresy. And my sons were the ones who introduced me. And community brunch at Mel meant you never knew who was going to be there. And by that point in time, Mel was the MIT Urban Studies he administered, and they had people from all over the country who would come to learn urban organizing. And it was a question of knowing your neighbor, of pulling together. And the brunches at Mel were maybe one or two of those fellows were there, but you never knew who was going to be there from this country, from another country. And I remember one of the wonderful people that got to know through that was a couple. He was a Black a U.S. soldier, and she was an Aleut from our Aleutian Islands, and they were one of those couples. And but we learned, and it was love, and I just can't emphasize that question of bringing together. And this is what he did. And yes, campaigns, you can see this one. This was a Congress. His short 2 terms in the State House, but Massachusetts left us with a wonderful living memorial, because he's the one who instituted urban gardens and our farmers markets. That was Mel. And we all are thankful to him for that. I saw his son, one of his sons, a couple of days ago, and my daughter and I were walking, and Mel lives, you understand, directly across the street from me, or did live. But he told us that they are having a small family memorial at Meth Union Church, but family, but then they're going to be a larger memorial. And I have to tell you, on family memorial, my daughter said, well, you know, when Ed died, my husband of 51 years, your father was the only one who was non-family who came. And that's, Mel supported me. I haven't seen Joyce in the last couple of weeks, but I see Joyce, his wife, very often. And you know, throughout all the pandemic and stuff, we would sit and talk, and she, for a little bit, while we could get the air and love each other. And again, what I have to say is it was bringing people together, and absolutely, you never knew who it was or where. And he was a gentle giant, and he was a giant, really, physically, and then the love that was projected out throughout. And I don't know more to say, but it's also reflected in the love of his children in that family of closeness. So it was family, it was public, the neighborhood, and yes, that's that tech center across the street. And I'm going to shut up at this point, but I love you all, and love Mel, and love present his family. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Tilly. Mel King presente. And I'll just mention that Tilly lives right across the street from Mel and Joyce, and now Joyce. And please, Tilly, give Joyce our warmest regards and our sympathies for her loss and her family's loss. I want to say that my best memory of Mel was when he came. He and Joyce won our Sacquin Vanzetti Award in 2009, but he also came to present Chuck Turner, another luminary African-American politician from Boston, who did just incredible work in Roxbury. And Mel King came in his unusual attire. This was a bright yellow jumpsuit. And he read just the most beautiful poem that he'd written for Chuck Turner. And we have to find it. If our records work well and we were able to tape that poem, I wish I could have it right now to read for you. Mel's poem that he wrote to Chuck Turner. We remember him so well, and this city remembers him so well. 1983, that incredible campaign. He ran for mayor, And I had just arrived in Boston, and I remember tuning into the concession speech, and I said, this is not a concession speech. This is a victory speech, because this man had brought the rainbow together in the city of Boston, a place so divided by awful history in that age of racism. And it was just this jubilant ceremony or celebration. And the city has never been the same since. And I attribute to Mel King the fact that we have the most diverse government probably in the country, and the most women represented government in the country right now for the city of Boston. So just a lot to remember about Mel, and it will continue, and there will be large public celebration eventually, I'm sure. Welcome everybody. There's some new faces right here physically in the audience that I'm sure are here for Allen or just for Community Church. I have no idea. Les damos la bienvenida a los que están primera vez aquí en el auditorio, y gracias por darnos honor con su presencia, y los niños también. Tengo unos juguetes, quizás quieren jugar un poquito ahora despuesito. Okay, so we are also joined by Reggie Harris. Reggie Harris is on the road in some remote place, but he joins us despite the difficulty of the connectivity. And Reggie, I thought of a great way to introduce you. Reggie is Ron DeSantis's worst nightmare. Why? Because Reggie and his wife, Kim, have devoted their music and educational career to teaching about slavery, racism, abolitionism, the songs of that gave inspiration to that era and the civil rights era, and it's just an inspiration and an honor to have Reggie back with us. Reggie, I hope we can have you here physically sometime soon, and do you up in a way that does you right in a red carpet kind of way that has amazing sound and amazing publicity, so we can do a concert for you here in our beautiful auditorium. Thanks, Reggie. Take it away. Woo!
Good morning to you all, and to all, including Mel, who clearly welcomed all people into the struggle and into the triumph of the civil rights movement and the human rights movement. Begin with this song. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Well, I'm singing and praying with my mind. Oh, it's stayed on freedom. Singing and praying with my mind. Stayed on freedom. I'm singing and praying with my mind. Stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Well, I'm walking and marching with my mind. Stayed on freedom. Walking and marching with my mind. Stayed on freedom. I'm walking and marching with my mind. Stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. You know we gotta walk, we gotta walk, you gotta walk up with your mind on freedom. Walk, we gotta walk up with your mind on freedom. Oh, walk, you gotta walk, and then we'll talk, you gotta talk, yeah, talk with your mind on freedom. Talk, you gotta talk with your mind on freedom. Oh, talk, talk, you gotta talk. Well, I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind, you know it was a stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
My mind is stayed on freedom. Thank you, Reggie. Thank you. Reggie has just been in New England doing a walk around and gig around with Alistair Mook, another friend of ours, and doing song and talk about different issues of race. And boy, it makes me think so much more deeply about the struggle for freedom and the civil rights era that, to my mind, was a bigger moment in this country's history than even the revolution and the Constitution. That was a bunch of white male property owners trying to gain more advantage than they already had. And then there was the civil rights era, and I'm hungry to learn and hungry to find out more about it and put it in its real place, that where it belongs in this country's history. I want to tell you about two events. I keep saying shows. This is not a show. This is a church. This is a church. We have to have a frown on our face. And two events coming up on Sundays. Next Sunday, April 9th, the speaker is Julia Jehnsen from Extinction Rebellion, and it's called How to Save a Planet Before It's Too Late. The musicians that day are, you might know this name, Dean Stevens and my good buddy, Rob Flax. He's an incredible fiddle, mandolin player, and backup singer. And by the way, he's playing tonight at Pasim's, and I'm going to be there and do one song with him. And so, apropos to nothing, I just thought I'd mention that. And then on April 16th, Victor Wallace, longtime friend of Community Church, whose mother's paintings grace our entire auditorium. They're just, you see some blank spaces. Those are either paintings that got sold or that got taken down because we're sadly taking down the gallery show that we had in this room for about 3 months, and it was his mother's paintings, all proceeds of painting sales to long deferred maintenance projects that we have on this building, and we raised about $10,000. So it's a beautiful thing. We owe a great debt to Victor Wallace, who is a very prolific author on topics of socialism, and his most recent one is called Red Green, and it's about environment and socialism. His talk is entitled The Struggle for Ecological Socialism. And the musician that day is named David Rovics. And David is a people's troubadour that has been with us many times for all kinds of events and celebrations and commemorations. So a couple things coming up. Also, we have some Friday concerts. And May 5th, I think, is the Friday, and that is my friend Eric Kilburn, who is helping us try to really make this a good, professional, clean, beautiful sounding broadcast. And then in June, on June 9th, we have Dylan Buston, who is a long time fabled troubadour and songwriter and storyteller and playwright. We're glad to welcome him in June. So lots of things going on here at Community Church. Yes, Amar is signaling to me.
And on April 12th, we're hosting a film screening, Ukraine on Fire by Oliver Stone. So we're going to watch that on April 12th, I think at 6 or 7 p.m. and then have a 30-minute discussion afterwards about the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And then on April 25th, we're going to interview Ray McGovern, a CIA analyst for 27 years with expertise on Russia and China, and he's going to come speak with us and analyze the conflict in Ukraine on April 25th.
That's April 12th, Ukraine on Fire movie screening, and April 25th, Ray McGovern. Both of those are virtual events. Am I right? Only virtual?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes, not physical events, and they will be on a different different Zoom link. Am I right? So
Yeah, I'll put the Zoom link to the
posted. We will announce on our email list those events, but it is a different Zoom link. These are collaborations with Mass Peace Action. And I want to thank Amar, who's behind the controls, trying to make order out of chaos. There's always something with these broadcasts, but we also are really glad to welcome about 15 people right here in the audience to this presentation by our longtime member who's recently reinvigorated his membership and is now on the board and is presenting the talk today. But first, we're going to hear again from Reggie. We call it the musical message, couple of songs from Reggie, and I hope you can tell us a little bit about your travels and your touring and what's going on, and a couple of songs. Reggie Harris, folks.
Well, thank you, Dean, and thank you so much to all of you who are focusing so many on the issues that plague our nation and have plagued our nation. I have been traveling so much of this year as part of my ongoing 40-plus year musical journey to use music to open the hearts and minds of folks around our nation. I do a lot of things in schools, a lot of presentations on the music of the Underground Railroad and civil rights. But recently I've been doing a number of shows with Alistair Mook and with Greg Greenway. Both of those shows, Race and Song and Deeper Than the Skin, are focused on fostering conversations on race and oppression. Obviously, race is not the only oppression that we humans struggle with. So a lot of the music that we've been doing and a lot of the conversations that I've been sharing with folks is around the difficulty of facing our history and then making the effort not to be defined by what has happened in the past, but certainly to acknowledge it. So this morning I am so happy to be joining you, and Malcolm X said at one point late in his life, we need more light about each other. He said, for light brings understanding, understanding brings love, love brings patience, and patience brings unity. We need more light about each other. And clearly, we are not in a place where we are sharing a lot of light, but indeed, we gather this morning to share more light. And there are many in this nation, more than get airtime and time and attention, who are shedding light and shining a spotlight on the fact that we need to be talking and, even more important, listening to each other. So that's where this song came from. It's called Windows of the Heart. Sit alone together, each from our different worlds, suspicious of each other, position flags unfurled. So much lies broken between us, lines of connection down, standing in ruins bonds of pain and mistrust, searching for common ground. So we stumble through our points of view, logic falls apart. In that moment of confusion, we see a place to start. Through the windows of the heart. We sit in silence and wonder, where do we go from here? Frustration dragging us under, no resolution clear. We feel the anger, this desperation to turn this world around. Each of our faces a mirror, searching for common ground. So we lower our defenses, watch them fall apart. In that moment of confusion, we see a place to start. Through the windows of the heart. Ooh, so we lower our defenses, watch them fall apart. In that moment of communion, we see a place to start. Through the windows of the heart. In 2015, the organization that I work with, actually I'm the co-president and musical education director of an organization called the Living Legacy Project. The Living Legacy Project began with a journey sponsored by Reverend Gordon Gibson and his wife Judy around 2006 when they took their congregation. Gordon was a Unitarian minister who served actually in Roxbury, but then took, after answering Dr. King's call to clergy to come to Selma, Alabama after Bloody Sunday, Gordon took a call to the South and served several congregations in Mississippi for about 20 years or so. And in his last pastoring, he was in Indiana and took a group of his congregants south to meet many of the folks that he had developed a relationship with over the course of years and struggled with and helped to work on civil rights there in Mississippi and in Alabama. Well, in 2015, that organization, which by then had grown into a full 501c3, We sponsored a conference in Birmingham, Alabama, on the anniversary of the 50th commemoration of Bloody Sunday. And we invited a group of people, about 600 folks came. And on that Saturday night, we had the pleasure of hosting Reverend C.T. Vivian, who was, of course, one of Dr. King's associates and one of the directors of SCLC. And he came and shared his story and his narrative of his journey through civil rights. And I had the opportunity to meet him that evening and to also have the privilege of sitting in the audience as he recounted the power and the commitment of the civil rights movement then and now. At that time, he was about 91 years old, and just full of spirit, full of vigor, full of passion, and full of love. He said in the civil rights movement, we were working for love, and we were working with good leadership. And he said that he gave us just a lot of great memories, but also information on how to build a movement. And so it was that I have spread that news to young people and not so young people, seasoned individuals across the nation, inspired by that amazing man who in 1965 was seen leading a group of people down to Selma City Hall. He was leading them there to have them try to register to vote. Most of you probably know that at that time in Lowndes County and Dallas County, African Americans could not register to vote. They would be turned away. They would be given ridiculous literacy tests. And he encountered the head of security, the police chief, Jim Clark, that day, and he pointed his finger in Jim Clark's face as he turned them away. He said, we are here to register as citizens. We are willing to be beaten for democracy. You can actually see that encounter on YouTube. If you just type in C.T. Vivian Jim Clark, it comes right up. A powerful moment in our nation's history. And that powerful moment inspired this song. It's called Standing in Freedom's Name. Selma, Alabama, 1965. A group of people standing in the rain. They came for resolution that was missing from their lives. Came in the terror and the pain. 400 years of hatred, abuse and savage lies, fighting segregation and despair. They came in hope, believing that the world would hear their cries. One man put his finger in the air. He said, we're willing to be beaten, we will never go away. Did you hear what we had to say? We will never go back, we will never go back. Got our eyes on the prize, got this train on the track. We are here in freedom's name. And there's nothing you can do to make us wear those chains again. Now we stand here remembering that moment, in a future where we say that we are free. But the forces of evil and oppression are still here for every open eye to see. We are fighting in a battle of a lifetime, taking down those hated symbols one by one. Like our elders, we're fighting for the future. In their name, we will do what must be done. We will never be defeated, we will never go away. Did you hear what we had to say? We will never go back, we will never go back. Got our eyes on the prize, got this train on the track. We are here in freedom's name. and there's nothing you can do to make us wear those chains. We will never go back, we will never go back. Got our eyes on the prize, got this train on the track. We are here in freedom's name, and there's nothing you can do to make us wear those chains. Singing freedom, singing freedom, singing freedom. We are here in freedom's name. Oh, singing freedom, singing freedom, singing freedom. We are here in freedom's name. We will never go back, we will never go back. Got our eyes on the prize, train on the track. We are here in freedom's name, and there's nothing you can do to make us wear those chains. We will never go back. So happy to be here this morning.
Thank you, Reggie. You inspire me for pouring out your soul to us through the airwaves. It comes through loud and clear. Thank you so much. And we'll hear one more after Alan. I want to tell you a couple things that I forgot to announce before. First thing is that we're having this new monthly routine, which is called Encuentro Cinco Peña, and it happens every Saturday, last Saturday of every month. And it is basically an open mic, South American style. Peña came, I believe, from the country of Chile, and the singers like Violeta Parra and Victor Jara. And it was a gathering where people got to sing, read, pour out their soul in some way or other, and be together. So, and this is something I'm really looking forward to and proud of. Just saying that now on our board of directors at Community Church, we have 3 Latin American people. El Salvador, Mexico, and Costa Rica are represented on that board. And it's a point of pride to me, a sort of pseudo Latin American, born and grew up in Costa Rica. So I want to tell you that, and I want to show you a couple more things. This is kind of like, it's my show and tell. Unwrap these, but this is the season of eggs, and this is these are Boomerang's acquisition. Those of you who don't know, Boomerangs is a wonderful set of thrift stores in the Boston area that benefit the AIDS Action Committee. And this is just a gorgeous painted egg from Japan, I believe. And I'm going to add it to a whole bunch of other Japanese things that we have there. And this is some wooden eggs that are painted too. It's just the season of eggs and of fecundity and fertility. And despite commemorating the death of Jesus and all that stuff, we have to just kind of cut through that a little bit and believe that spring is on its way, and everything is starting to sprout. And so that's my eggs. Thank you for indulging me in my eggs. And the other thing is that I just took delivery of a bunch of these little burlap bags that have this inside them. And I don't know if you can see it, but it's a set of beads. These beads came from Nida Abu Bakr. Her father, Shukri Abu Bakr, is one of the 5 Holy Land Foundation prisoners who received our Sacco and Vanzetti Award in December. And these, it is the month of Ramadan, during which Muslims fast from sunup to sundown. And this gives Shukri, Nida's father, a chance to take the bread that is served, probably white Wonder Bread, and turn them into mazbahas, which are Muslim prayer beads. These are made out of bread made into little balls and very carefully painted. And here's the inscription: from the deep ends of a prison cell, a simple fiddling with soft slice of white bread, then balling up a piece between my fingers, an idea sparked in my head. I want you to know that every bead you hold in your hand came straight from my hands, imagination, and a pure desire to encourage everyone of all faiths to enjoy the remembrance of Allah, God. Each mazbaha is one of a kind. No two can be ever alike. This product is made by a political prisoner who refuses to be shrunk into an insignificant being devoid of purpose and stripped of desire to stand strong and determined. Thank you for your support. Shukri Abu Bakr. He's in federal prison in Beaumont, Texas. He was one of the 5 that received our award. And if you don't know about the Holy Land Foundation 5, we'd be glad to give you some background. We have the book by Miko Peled that he wrote about the case in the aftermath of 9/11. They were their foundation was shut down and they were tried, and they're serving long sentences now for basically providing food, nourishment, toys, and school supplies to children in Gaza and the West Bank. So we have a bunch of these, and they're for sale. If you're interested, come talk to me. Okay, so, the one other announcement, we have every Wednesday at noon, open house, Casa Abierta. We serve pupusas. Our cook is from El Salvador and brings pupusas from Chelsea. And you can come and join us, and we'd be glad to give you a tour of some of our church building, especially the archives where there are letters from Martin Luther King. There's a letter we just discovered from Senator John Kennedy, 1956, where he says, "Dear Reverend Lothrop, our minister for 39 years, I'm sorry I can't join you to speak on a Sunday because my Catholic faith does not allow it. But I'd be glad to join you on a weekday forum." He never did, though. He was a senator and kind of busy at that time. But all these gems that we keep finding, I had never seen that letter before. And letters from King, Thurgood Marshall, who spoke here in 1957 as well, and lots of others. It's a marvelous thing that we were just wanting to share with the people of this city and show what a gem this Thing Community Church of Boston is. And its 103-year history has been both a gem in the middle of the city and a thorn in the side of power and privilege and the man, let's say. So I would like to introduce Allen with a little song, Caña dulce pa moler, cuando tenga mi casita, oh qué suerte tan bonita, oh qué suerte tan bonita, que pa mí tendrá que ser. Cuando apunte el verolis y yo viva con mi nena, no tendré ninguna pena, no tendré ninguna pena y seré siempre feliz. Tendré entonces mi casita y una milpa y buenos bueyes y seré como esos reyes que no envidian ya nadita. And there's 2 or 3 more verses, which I will not sing. It's basically sugar cane to grind when I have my little house. Oh, what a sweet thing it'll be when I live with my baby, my sweetheart, in my little house, and I have my sugar cane. Everything will be perfect. I will have my little house and a corn and a cane field, or a milpa is a cornfield actually, and my cane and good oxen, and I will be like those kings who don't envy anything. That's a traditional song from Costa Rica, which is where I was born and grew up and was schooled and learned that song that I've always cherished because it evokes this dream of a simple life for a farmer. And it's a little old-fashioned and evokes a time before tourism in Costa Rica and before a whole different reality all over the planet. But it brings me together with Alan Pérez, who is also from Costa Rica. And Alan is an attorney, and he was a member of the church in the late 90s and early 2000s. And then he was back in Costa Rica, and now he lives with us here in Boston and has reinvigorated his commitment to community churches on the board. And in addition to being a lawyer, is also just a really eloquent author. In Spanish as well as in English. I've read a number of his articles in El País, Costa Rica, which is, I read it online, and it's really a marvelous thing to hear Alan comment about the Central American reality. And now he's taking up a whole different subject, which is MLK, and will deliver an address about MLK, and it's a wonderful thing that you've taken up this topic, because it's dear to CCB's heart. MLK spoke here in 1956, and also dear to the planet. And Alan Pérez.
I think the microphone is this okay? Okay. Well, I feel very happy to be this morning with all of you. It's a sunny day. Before continuing my words, I want to say something in Spanish briefly. Quiero dar la bienvenida a mis amigos del Salvador, Panamá, algunos que me están viendo por YouTube de Colombia y Honduras. I also want to welcome and salute the Brazilians who are here with me, and the Asian community that is represented by two distinguished friends that are in this place. I have deep appreciation for all human beings, for all nationalities, and for all races. It's a beautiful day. I was a bit late because today Boston was a bit crazy, the roads and the train. But we are here. Let me begin my speech saying the following. Can you hear me? I'm grateful to Community Church of Boston for the invitation to address such a distinguished audience. For 100 years and a little bit more, Community Church has promoted freedom and humanist values. And I am honored to speak in a space that has hosted men and women of the stature of W.E.B. Du Bois, Will Durant, Jiddu Krishnamurti, Rosa Parks, Angela Davis, Sarojini Naidu, the woman Indian poet who, alongside Gandhi, played a pivotal role in the Indian independence movement, Daniel Ellsberg, Noam Chomsky, Howard Zinn, and not surprisingly also Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It is an honor to share this setting with a distinguished African-American artist, Reggie Harris, a singer, songwriter, a storyteller, and a world-renowned song leader who is a powerful interpreter of the global music narrative. Reggie, my brother, thank you so much for your participation today. I come here this morning as a humble U.S. citizen to attest to the impact of Martin Luther King Jr. on my life and to address why he continues to be so relevant today in ways that differ profoundly from how he is officially celebrated each January. In 1968, when I was just a child of almost 8 years old, in Costa Rica, I witnessed Dr. King's funeral on television. And I asked my father who that person was and why so many people were marching. His answer, my father's answer, was simple. Son, he was a good man. Since then, his name has been emblazoned in my mind. When I turned 13, my father gave me the greatest present, a book, My Life with Martin Luther King, written by Coretta Scott King, a pacifist and a civil rights advocate on her own merits. In that same year, on September 11 of 1973, Salvador Allende, democratic elected president of Chile, was deposed by a military coup orchestrated by the United States. These events stir in me haunting questions related to democracy, nonviolence, and armed struggle questions pondered by many in Latin America, the Caribbean, Asia, and Africa, and also by radicals among the oppressed minorities of the US. At that time, I could not imagine that 25 years later, I was going to co-lead a US delegation to Cuba in my capacity as head of the Latin American and Caribbean office of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, a human rights organization headquartered in Cambridge. The purposes of the delegation were to celebrate the first Socio-Theological Conference to honor Dr. King's philosophy on nonviolence, to ease the tensions between the US and Cuba, and to advocate for the lifting of sanctions imposed on the island. The event was a complete success in a people-to-people effort to modestly help solve an irrational policy of sanctions. I also could not imagine that I will end up living in the Boston area, a place where Dr. King lived for 3 years, worked, studied, graduated from Boston University, and met the woman he would marry. It was also in Boston where he revisited his most famous speech, "I Have a Dream." Given this history, it makes sense that Boston Common is now home to a prominent memorial to Martin and Coretta. The bronze structure, titled "The Embrace," depicts the arms, shoulders, and hands of the kings, hugging after Martin received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964, a moment immortalized in a famous photo. This is the work of the talented and accomplished African-American artist, Hank Willis Thomas. Just 4 days ago, I had the opportunity to visit this bronze monument, the largest in the United States. I extend my gratitude to Mika, a good friend of mine who was kind enough to accompany me to the Boston Common. The monument is an invitation to exercise what sculpturists call interpretive reading, going to a place in one's mind to wrestle with the context, ideas, and feelings raised by the work. The aim is to engage the viewer in a personal interpretation of the artwork. I emphasize this point because every January, when we officially celebrate MLK's birthday, I agonize. We paradoxically forget Dr. King in his dynamic reality and humanity. His memory has been sanitized, airbrushed, and filtered. His image frozen as a simplified picture of a idealistic dreamer to be remembered for a handful of fanciful speeches. This is the MLK that the status quo wishes to remember, not the MLK that fought for radical democracy and for the adherence to the promises of the American Declaration of Independence. Who is this king that said, quote, "We have fought hard and long for integration, as I believe we should have, and now that we will win, but I have come to believe we are integrating into a burning house. I'm afraid that America might be losing what moral vision she might have had. And I'm afraid that even as we integrate, we are walking into a place that that does not understand that this nation needs to be deeply concerned with the plight of the poor and the disenfranchised. Closing the quote. Who is this king? Who is this king who became pessimistic when he said, "My dream turned into a nightmare"? Lincoln emancipated the slaves, but he didn't secure their freedoms, didn't liberate them from poverty, discrimination, or illiteracy. The period of Reconstruction was short-lived, and afterwards, Jim Crow became the law and the custom of the land. Dr. King inherited the trauma of those generations, originally kidnapped from Africa and viciously brought here. Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Tamir Rice, Walter Scott, Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, Stephen Clark, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Dante Wright are examples of people who fell prey to institutionalized violent racism that continues to prevail. Black Lives Matter sent shock waves throughout the nation and exposed our reality to the world. Even today, this unresolved horror is an intricate and difficult problem for our society. On April 4 of 1967, King came to the Riverside Church in New York City and delivered a strong speech against the Vietnam War entitled "Beyond Vietnam, a Time to Break Silence." The iconic civil rights activist and Georgia congressman, the late John Lewis, said, "The force of the speech eclipsed that all of the others that King gave, including his most famous. I heard him speak so many times. I still think this is probably the best." On that occasion, King said that the Vietnam was the symptom of a far deeper malady within the American spirit. And if left untreated, the malady continued to fester. We shall surely be dragged down the long, dark, and shameful corridors of time reserved for those who possesses power without compassion, might without morality, and strength without sight. He also said, "A time comes when silence is betrayal," and continues to elaborate on this. Over the past 2 years, as I have moved to break the betrayal of my own silences and to speak from the burnings on my own hearts. And he continues to elaborate on his own responsibility about this. King linked the maladies of racism and poverty with the inherent immorality of these nations' unchecked militarism, adding, I could never again raise my voice against the violence of the oppressed, with having first spoken clearly to the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today, my own government. The greatest purveyor of violence in the world today, my own government. When I still, despite his passionate criticism of the US policy, King loved this land of ours like very few people. King says, when I speak of love, I'm not speaking of some sentimental and weak response. This call for a worldwide fellowship that lifts neighborly concern beyond one's tribe, race, class, and nation is in reality a call for an all-embracing and unconditional love for all men. And let me make a comment about this. Because this speech has to be understood that it was not only delivered to the plight of the American people at that time, is the king that also addresses the world. Because he says, these maladies go beyond nationalities, race, ethnic groups, and so on. This is an appeal to the world. This is an appeal to the world because he is concerned about the small land that got its independence in 1945, Vietnam, 3 years before the Chinese Revolution, and who put in its own Declaration of Independence from the French sentences from the American Declaration of Independence. Vietnam defeated the French, and the French didn't give up. They wanted to invade and recolonize France for 9 years. And the Vietnamese defeated France again. And 80% of the French ammunition and military support came from the United States. But America didn't want to give up because they thought that small country of little people, of Buddhist people, didn't deserve or were not mature to achieve independence. That's when the US got engaged in sending thousands of troops to fight the just cause of the Vietnamese people. As I was saying, you know, for me, it's kind of a new exercise to read a speech because I'm more like My spirit is more for improvising, but time and the years are sometimes betray my memory, so it's very good for me to have papers. But let me find where I was. Where I was. Well, after the speech at the Riverside Church, he got a backlash. National. 168 newspapers, major newspapers in the United States, condemned the speech. King became persona non grata at Johnson's White House. The Washington Post, the liberal newspaper, declared he has diminished his usefulness to this cause, to his country, and to his people. The New York Times argued that King's speech was both wasteful and self-defeating to link Vietnam with domestic inequality and unrest. Other less measured in their language, like Life magazine, describe it as demagogic slander that sounded like a script for Radio Hanoi. But this is interesting, what I'm going to say later on. King was also attacked by prominent Black people, like the very smart and distinguished Dr. Ralph Bunche, his fellow Nobel Peace Laureate, and the first African American to receive that prize, by Carl Rowan, the most prestigious African American journalist at the time, by Thurgood Marshall, who spoke here, the first African American justice. Thurgood was very harsh on him. His main point is, inciting people to protest in the streets is not the way to go. We need to use only legal courts. And also, there was a resolution condemning his declarations by the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which he co-founded, his home. Other Black leaders disagree with King honestly, like Stokely Carmichael of the Student Nonviolence Coordinating Committee, who coined the term Black Power, and also Malcolm X. On March 26, 1964, King and Malcolm X met for the first and only time in Washington, D.C. Less than a year later, Malcolm was dead, assassinated, ending any possibility of friendship between two of America's most influential Black leaders. In addition, King was targeted and persecuted by J. Edgar Hoover, the powerful and despicable FBI director. The FBI threatened King, wiretaped his communications, and spy on him in every possible way. In every possible way, making informants of James Harrison, the treasurer of the SCLC, and Ernest Whithurst, a Black freelance photographer and an insider of the civil rights movement. King's condemnation of the war also risks making an enemy of President Johnson, his friend and ally, who made possible, after all, the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Act. Stay on your lane. You are a preacher, not a politician. You have no say in foreign and military affairs of the US government. King was reminded by enemies and even friends. But King didn't give up. He was convinced of his prophetic mission. In giving a voice to the voiceless in Vietnam, as well as to the often ignored American poor, even at the risk of losing most of his popular support, King outraged many. In calling out the contradictory action of his own government, he exposed flaws in our society. The system does not honor fundamental obligations like providing livable wages, universal health care, affordable housing, and equal opportunity transcending class, race, and gender. His condemnation of the ever-expanding military-industrial complex rings true, especially in today's political climate. In November 1967, King announced the Poor People's Campaign, seeking a middle ground between riots on one hand and timid supplications for justice on the other. King planned to descend on Washington, bringing large crowds to meet government officials to demand jobs, unemployment insurance, a fair minimum wage, and education for poor adults and children designed to improve their self-image and self-esteem. King blamed the Vietnam War for thwarting the efforts promised in Johnson's Great Society. As part of the Poor People's Campaign, King went to Memphis in 1968 to support the sanitation workers who had been striking to demand better working conditions and higher pays. The sanitation workers, also called garbage workers, were extremely exploited and humiliated. The strike drew keen and faithfully became the setting for his "I have been on the mountaintop" speech. A day later, on April 4th of 1968, exactly 12 months after his mostly forgetting Vietnam speech, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in Memphis. Johnson's political future crumbled with the ongoing war in Vietnam. His domestic agenda slowed as he turned attention towards the overseas conflict. And Johnson dropped out from the 1968 presidential campaign a week before King's assassination. Here is the question. Who is the king that we need to remember? Is it the airbrush image of king, superficial and fashionable? Or do we need to rescue his true legacy, the very human king, the duck, with his doubts, agonies, and flaws, and his brilliance, a legacy that continues to defy the three evils: racism, poverty, and militarism. Our imperial democracy must be reanalyzed and critically reconceive its political and moral foundations, not only in its domestic policy, but also globally, because we bear a political and military responsibility all the time, everywhere, through hard or soft power, or through direct or indirect means. Therefore, the term imperial democracy must not be seen as an oxymoron, and it deserves more attention in the field of political science. We, the American people, have wide spaces for freedom of expression and for the use of democratic mechanisms, some more efficient than others, which we should not waste, because we still have our Constitution and our Declaration of Independence. We are far from fulfilling all the promises of these founding documents to our nation and to the world. We have long ways to go. Our past history has a realistic mirror, and we love to ignore it. At best, most of the time, we see an idealized mirror decorated with flowers. And that is the road to perdition and dishonesty. The brain is selective, and that is good, but it can also be detrimental for the historical memory of all nations. 20 years ago, the US illegally invaded and destroyed Iraq. Are we paying reparations for this heinous and criminal act? Do we have to avoid diplomacy at all costs in Europe and elsewhere? It seems clear that the establishment in Washington hardly learns from past mistakes, perhaps in obedience to the military-industrial complex. Why do we brag about morality when our government is trying to imprison Julian Assange or still occupies Cuban territory with any right in Guantanamo? We must respect Cuban sovereignty, respect its right to self-determination, and participate in commerce with the Cubans in peace. All the sanctions against the island have to be lifted. It is a moral obligation in the Kenyan tradition. Our democracy and liberties are under attack. We must defend them. As US citizens, we must do it. Let's defend peace at home and abroad. Let's build a broad coalition to persuade public opinion that diplomacy and not war is the way to go. I get mad with this, because this is such a fundamental truth of relating with our neighbors and among the nations. He said, I am convinced that if we are to get on the right side of the world revolution, we as a nation must undergo a radical revolution of values. We must rapidly begin the shift from a thing-oriented society to a person-oriented society. When machines and computers, profit motives, and property rights are considered more important than people, the giant triplets of racism, materialism, and militarism are incapable of being conquered. We must agree with him. This is my plea for this morning. Let's resurrect and trumpet the values for which King lived and died. Justice for all, service to others, and a love that liberates no matter the cost. These are the thoughts that will be in my heart when I next visit the powerful monument on Boston Common dedicated to Martin and Coretta's legacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Licenciado Alan Pérez. You honor us with your speech and your presence and your reminder of Dr. King. We get to hear one more song from Reggie. I also want to show you this beautiful basket that I just bought along with those eggs back there at the Boomerangs thrift store. It's a beautiful basket, and it's a way to talk about that we need your help to make this thing go. Community Church. It can be in this basket if you're here physically. It can also be online. Our website is communitychurchofboston.org. And there is a credit card as well as a PayPal option. You can also send a check to 565 Boylston Street. We'll put the address in the chat. And again, we'll just pass it over to Reggie for one last song. Thank you for joining us today, Reggie, from so far away.
Thank you, Dean, and what a marvelous speech. I invite you to sing along. This is a song that I wrote in honor of the civil rights movement and in honor of all movements for which we are committed. The words say, "We will not rest until the storm is over. We will not lay this burden down. We will keep each other strong. We will love and carry on till we stand all together on solid ground." Goes like this. We will not rest till the storm is over. We will not lay this burden down. We will keep each other strong. We will love and carry on till we stand all together on solid ground. We will not rest till the storm is over. We will not lay this burden down. We will keep each other strong. We will love and carry on till we stand all together on solid ground. Been a long, hard journey on a winding road. So many have gone before us. They carried a heavy load, but they went there singing as they made their way. Now it's in their footsteps we follow as we work today. We will not rest till the storm is over. We will not lay this burden down. We will keep each other strong. We will love and carry on till we stand all together on solid ground. We will not rest till the storm is over. We will not lay this burden down. We will keep each other strong. We will love and carry on till we stand all together on solid ground. I know that you're weary. We all feel the pain. Sometimes the actions of the world will try your soul again, but I believe there's a better day that's coming our way. That's why we're raising our voices as we work today. We will not rest till the storm is over. We will not lay this burden down. We will keep each other strong. We will love and carry on till we stand all together on solid ground. All around us there's hatred. All around us there's fear. Violence touches our lives and the message is clear. We mourn our martyrs. In our hearts they'll stay. Then we'll sing, we shall overcome and go on our way. We will not rest till the storm is over. We will not lay this burden down. We will keep each other strong. We will love and carry on till we stand all together on solid ground. Till we stand all together on solid ground. Till we stand all together on solid ground.
So we want to invite Alan to come back and join us again for a conversation. And I know that Amar, who I want to recognize, who is behind the controls, has one to start out with, right, Amar? Yeah, go ahead. You have the floor, Amar.
Great, thanks, Dean. And thank you, Alan, so much for your talk. It was so great and important, I think. And thank you, Reggie, for the music, really awesome music. So, Alan, I think your talk was really great and really important. This is obviously a very important subject, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I just want to share my opinion that, not just an opinion, actually, it's a fact. And I've said this here before in this same chair, that in 1999, the King family, they brought a civil trial against the United States government and unnamed conspirators. And they proved in civil court in Memphis in 1999, in front of a jury of 12 people, that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated by a conspiracy that involved the FBI and that involved the Memphis police. There was a Jim's Bar and Grill owned by a guy named Jim. Jim confessed on tape that, yeah, he was working with the FBI and the Memphis police to shoot Dr. Martin Luther King. And so what I want to say is that I want to share my opinion that this person, this human being, who is one of the most important people in the history of this country and of our humanity, I don't think that we can honor him until children in school are taught why he was, who killed him and why. You know, Alan used the word today that he's sanitized. His legacy is sanitized, and that's true, of course. So I think that a federal holiday to honor Dr. Martin Luther King, sculptures in Boston Common, I think it's fake, and I think it's theater until children are taught in schools why this person was killed and who killed him. And the King family knew. I think it was Mary Lynn Kramer who reminded me that when they brought this civil trial to court, they wanted, and they only won $1. They were only asking for $1 because it wasn't about the money. It was about the truth. The truth matters. It still matters. And the last thing I'll say is, as Alan spoke with us today about Dr. King's radical legacy, prophetic legacy, and his organizing, for example, with poor white people in the Poor People's Campaign, and also his anti-war activism against the Vietnam War. The lesson that I take away from it that I think we can apply today is the war of our time right now, the US proxy war on Russia, where they're taking our hard-earned tax dollars and giving $100 billion to Ukraine to get slaughtered as cannon fodder in a proxy war against Russia. So I think the way that Dr. King spoke out against the Vietnam War and was attacked and villainized by people of his own community, I think that this is the challenge we face right now in regards to this major conflict. So I just wanted to share that. That's my opinion. I respect everyone else who has different opinions, but that's my opinion. Thank you, Alan, so much for speaking today. And it's an honor to be friends with you and to go to the Julian Assange thing with you a couple weeks ago. And thank you, Reggie, for the music. And thank you, everyone.
I want to say something because the journey of Dr. King through the civil rights movement was a journey of agony, of suffering. New generations think right now that everything was the very smart king got it all right without problems. It's kind of oversimplified. He had to deal with contradictions, not only with the enemies, in the federal government, or the white southerner races. He knew them very well, no? But also, he had to deal with the Jim Crow in the North. Like in places like in the Twin Cities, Minnesota. And Chicago was, wow, that was a big thing. But let me say this, numbers from the Gallup. When he was assassinated, the last survey, he was 75% unpopular in America. Close the 60% of African Americans didn't have the best opinion of Dr. King. He was 39 years old when he was assassinated, as well as Malcolm X. He was 39 years old, just 4 years before his Dr. King's death. But this shows a lesson to us that many times, I would say often, the right side of history, the struggle for justice, becomes in the States very unpopular. Like right now, if I dare to criticize the American spending in the billions in armaments in the Ukraine, I will be considered unpatriotic, un-American, and almost somebody who is betraying the nation. And to be perfectly honest, I don't get very well that President Biden and Antony Blinken is getting hawkish, worse than Donald Trump. Worse than Donald Trump. And this is too much to say. This is too much to say. At least I saw Donald Trump shaking hands with Kim Il-jong. But the problem in our democracy, through our history, is that for us, militarism is second nature, imposing our will everywhere, all the time, is such fundamental to our character. And this is, you know, I'm not all pessimistic. I think because we have freedoms and we have democratic mechanism where, where we can express dissent, I feel there is hope. I'm not going to give up that hope. No question or comment? I know some people, I can see some names from Colombia and some other Latino countries. And by the way, this is the first gathering that I remember a community church with the majority of the audiences of color. So for that, I feel very happy. We're reaching to new generations of immigrants, from everywhere. Reaching out. I'm still refining my English.
If people have questions on Zoom, they could put it in the chat, or they could use their raise hand feature on Zoom.
Anyone want to raise their virtual little yellow hand and say hello to us, or say hello to Alan, or have any more questions or comments? And thank you, Amar, for yours as well. Well, what I'll tell you is happening right now is that the air in the auditorium is filling, wafting with delicious luncheon that is making us all very hungry to go on to the next phase of our morning celebration. And so let's, we have Jose Aleman and we have Alan. Go ahead, Jose. Let me take this mic off and bring it to you.
Okay. No, he can turn it. Thank you, Omar. Thank you, Dean. Thank you, Alan, for not necessarily in January, put us to think about what we don't know and how we should honor the legacy and the example of Martin Luther King Jr. My question or my invitation to all of us. I know that Alan is part of the board at CCB and also a member of the programming committee. I would like to see, or I would like to suggest that rather than keeping only January as the month of Martin Luther King Jr., we could also invite or find out what the 3 schools of theology, including BU, Boston College, and Harvard University, are thinking or saying about your thesis, which is that we are widening the name and the example of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Maybe next year, or maybe this year, we could bring those young voices and those scholars to answer your question, to answer or to comment on your thesis of, is Martin Luther King Jr. being adorned, sanitized, clear of contradictions and strong messages and questioning of the legacy of the U.S. Government and first nature or second nature, as you call it. So my invitation to you is perhaps to push that issue so that answers to your questions can be provided by Harvard, Boston College, BU.
Normally, and there are kids here that know that very well. In the schools, there is basically one speech that is remembered. I have a dream. But they don't memorize even the whole speech. They memorize the 2-3 first sentences, and that's it. And I know that most of you have memorized those lines. In Memphis, they have an advantage. They at least can say, we remember 2 speeches. I have a dream, and I have been on the mountaintop, but no more than that. And the truth is that the speech beyond Vietnam has been buried, even though there is, in fact, research, investigation among intellectuals about it. For the large public opinion, the speech does not exist because it's pure subversion for the ruling class of the United States. And therefore, one of the things I'm going to propose to students and professors at Harvard or Boston University and some other congregations is to devote one day a year at least to study this profound document. As former Senator Lewis, late Senator Lewis said, this is the most crafted, inch by inch, went through different versions. In fact, Dr. King said that one thing. He said, you know, this is the most difficult speech I have ever delivered for one reason. As a Southern Baptist preacher, he was not used to read so much. He used to speak from the Spirit, in Christian terms, from the Holy Spirit. And I was raised in that way too. That's why today was not very comfortable for me to read pages, because I like to improvise. I like to speak from my spirit, from my soul. I like to move hands. I don't like to, have a paper in my hands. But that shows how important and how fundamental was for King and his team, because he was helped in crafting this speech with Mennonites, especially with a Mennonite friend of his, And he knew that he had to stay to the words of the document. And yes, we have to do archaeology of our history, because we tend to bury history and we have to, again, put it on the surface. So let's be archaeologists of history on and on without an end. Thank you.
Somebody else?
I have another question, actually. Quick question for Alan.
Another question from Amar.
Yeah, Alan. I'm wondering. I'm wondering in your studies and your research, do you have any insight to share with us about Dr. Martin Luther King and his beliefs in regards to God? How did his spiritual and religious beliefs shape his worldview?
You know, the centerpiece of Dr. King's theology is moral, is ethical, is social. It's the American version of liberation theology that we developed in Latin America. But this is a king that evolves, that gets more mature and connects the dots. At the beginning, he was thinking about integration, human rights respect, like in general. Later, he connects with the dire conditions of poverty of his people. Later on, he connects that these two issues have to do with the war. Because when the US under Johnson, who escalated the bombing of Vietnam and put a lot of money into that effort, the program, the social programs of Johnson, especially for the African American people, were going down. The numbers went down. So when King says, when we're dropping bombs in Vietnam, we're dropping bombs in Harlem or in Memphis or in Chicago. So the type of Christianity that he preaches is one based on love, nonviolence, and revolution. I'm not making this up. He mentioned revolution in America and revolution in the world. The thing, and when we look at the civil rights movement, we don't need to oversimplify because there were many tendencies there. And it's like the sun, it's like a sun. Everybody was looking for liberation from, you know, from exploitation. But it's a sun, but it has different rays, different perspectives. That's why I'm very adamant to even have a monument for Malcolm X in Boston, who lived here for a while, for Socky Carmichael, and from some others. Frederick Douglass. Yeah. Lots of monuments. That's why I said at the very beginning, if we go to the common, just a few blocks from here, we need to go with the critical mind, with having some sort of background of the meaning of that beautiful sculpture. But I don't want a king that is frozen in time, that is frozen in his speech of 1964. I don't want a king that is dead. I don't want a king that continues to be killed every year, sanitized, brushed, that serves to calm the consciousness or even of many white American and even Black liberals in this nation. Dr. King said in one of his speeches, I think that the main problem is not the KKK or the Southern racists, you know, or the people who confront me directly are those people that are presented to me like friends, white liberals that when I take a step forward for demanding more justice and for going to the streets and protest peacefully, like in Memphis, where the workers had this placard that said, "I am a man." You know, those white liberals are dangerous because they will put roadblocks in our struggle. And they, pretend to be on our side. These are not my words. These are words of Dr. King. And the last thing in Spanish. Yes, please. A mis amigos del Salvador, Guatemala, México, Honduras, Costa Rica, Brasil, Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka. Sí. Yo les quiero decir una historia. Yo tuve un mentor y una buena amistad con Howard Zinn. En el año 2003 nos conocimos marchando juntos contra la guerra en Irak. Yo estaba pasando por un momento personal difícil. Y Howard Zinn me dijo, Allen, tengo una buena idea para vos. Ve a Londres. Únete a Stop the War Coalition. Y te voy a recomendar para que hagas los contactos ahí. Fui a Londres. Recibí la solidaridad de los compañeros ingleses. Pudimos organizar una marcha de 1 millón de personas. Cuando regresé a los Estados Unidos, con mi pasaporte de ciudadano de Estados Unidos, yo le pregunté a Howard Zinn, ¿qué es un americano? Porque yo tenía ese conflicto. No sé, por ser muy apasionado sobre este país. Y Howard Zinn me contestó, americano es toda aquella persona que ha venido aquí para bien o para mal. Y cada uno tiene, ¿cómo se dice? Steak. Su pedazo de queque. Su pedazo de queque. Nobody is 100% American here in this country. No even the whitest of the white.
Ni el más blanco de los blancos.
Todos tienen un pedacito del queque.
They all have their piece of cake.
So I said to Howard, entonces le dije, Howard, gracias, Howard. Ahora me siento americano.
Now I feel American.
Y eso es lo que le quiero decir a mis compañeros de los países del mundo que vienen a los Estados Unidos.
And that's what I want to say to all of my comrades, companions of the whole world that come to the United States.
Que ustedes son un pedazo de ese queque que pertenece a todos.
That you are a piece of that cake and that belongs to everybody.
Amén.
Amen. Amen. Southern Baptist preacher, he is in a certain way. Yes, yes. Thank you, Alan Perez, and thank you everybody who has participated here today. We invite you to be back either virtually or in person. If it's in person, you get to enjoy the lunch if you're able to stay. Thank you, Luis Guzman, for making beautiful tilapia broiled with rice. I can hardly wait. And thank you everybody for being here. Amar and Charlie for your technical advice from all the way in Brighton. And everybody else, we'll see you again at Community Church. Join us on a Wednesday open house to get a little tour of our messy archives that we're trying to make order out of. Beautiful record of 103 years of history of Community Church. And that way we conclude our broadcast and we continue our lunch together here. And everybody online, thank you so much for joining us. Hasta la próxima, until the next one, until we meet again. Brothers and